The .22 long rifle. For over a century, gun experts have called it too weak for self-defense, a toy round, useless except for plinking cans and shooting squirrels. But the data tells a different story. In 2021, federal ammunition did something nobody expected. They built a .22 bullet that meets FBI standards, the same standards used for police duty weapons. This tiny round, smaller than your pinky fingernail, now performs like ammunition trusted by law enforcement. Military intelligence agencies have known this secret since World War II. British special forces carried them. American spies carried them. U-2 pilots flying over Soviet territory had them as survival weapons. And right now, thousands of Americans carry a .22 for protection every single day. Some out of necessity, some by choice, all of them ignored by the gun world. Let's find out why the .22 LR is better than you think. The 130-year argument. The .22 long rifle. It's been around since 1887. That's over 130 years. And for most of that time, people have argued about one thing. Can it save your life? Walk into any gun store. Bring up the .22 for home defense. Watch what happens. Some guys will laugh, others will get mad. A few will nod their heads and say, "It works." This debate never ends. And today, we're going to settle it once and for all. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. The .22 LR is the most popular round ever made. More people buy it than any other bullet on Earth. It's cheap, it's quiet, and it barely kicks when you shoot it. But power? That's where things get tricky. A .22 bullet weighs about 40 grains. That's basically nothing. It moves fast, sure, around 1,000 to 1,600 feet per second depending on the ammo, but it only creates about 110 foot-pounds of energy. Compare that to a 9mm. The 9mm makes around 350 foot-pounds, 3 times more power. The .45 caliber, even stronger. So why would anyone pick a .22 for defense? Hold that thought, because the answer is going to surprise you. The shocking data. Let's talk about what really happens when bullets hit people. A researcher named Greg Ellifritz did something incredible. He studied 1,800 real shootings, actual cases where people got shot. He wanted to know which bullets stopped attackers the fastest. The results shocked everyone. The .22 needed the fewest shots to stop an attacker compared to bigger bullets. Let me say that again. The tiny .22 stopped people with fewer shots than the mighty .45 or the popular 9mm. How is that possible? Here's the secret. Most attackers don't keep fighting because they physically can't. They stop because they mentally decide to quit. It's called a psychological stop. When someone shoots at you, your brain screams, "Danger!" Most criminals aren't looking to die. They're looking for easy victims. The moment they realize you're armed and shooting back, they run. Think about it from the criminal's perspective. They chose their target because they thought it would be easy. Maybe an elderly person, maybe someone walking alone at night. They expected no resistance. Then suddenly gunfire, pain, blood. The entire situation flipped in an instant. The survival instinct kicks in and running becomes the only logical choice. This happens in seconds, sometimes faster than the person even realizes they've been hit. And here's the kicker. Studies show that 60% of people hit once in the head or chest with a .22 stopped attacking immediately. That's the same rate as much bigger bullets. But wait, there's a catch. About 1/3 of people shot with a .22 were not stopped, no matter how many times they got hit. That's twice as many failures as the 380 or bigger rounds. So what does this mean? The .22 works great against normal criminals who run when they get shot, but against that rare, determined attacker, the one on drugs or who simply refuses to quit, that's where the .22 struggles. The breakthrough. For decades, the .22 had another problem, the ammunition itself. Old .22 bullets were designed for hunting squirrels and plinking cans, not stopping human threats. They were too light, too slow from short gun barrels, or they broke apart too fast. Then everything changed in 2021. Two major companies, Federal and Winchester released something new, real self-defense ammunition designed specifically for the .22. Federal created the punch round. Winchester made the silver tip. These aren't your grandpa's .22 bullets. The Federal punch uses a 29-grain flat-nosed bullet. It's coated in nickel so it won't deform or break. The design focuses on one thing: deep penetration. The engineers at Federal didn't just guess at what would work. They collaborated with their sister company Speer, which produces law enforcement ammunition. The expertise from decades of building duty rounds for police departments went into creating this tiny bullet. They tested it through ballistic gel with layers of heavy clothing, simulating real-world defensive scenarios. Testing showed something remarkable. From a tiny pistol with just a 2-inch barrel, the punch penetrated over 12 inches into ballistic gel. That meets the FBI's minimum standard for defensive ammunition. Think about that. A .22 bullet from a gun smaller than your wallet just passed the same test that 9mm bullets need to pass. The Winchester Silvertip takes a different approach. It's a 37-grain bullet that breaks into 3 pieces on impact. One chunk goes deep, while 2 petals spread out to the sides. It creates multiple wound channels instead of one. In tests, the Silvertip penetrated about 12 inches on average, not quite as deep as the punch, but still effective. Now here's where it gets really interesting. A tester fired Federal punch from a tiny revolver. Every single shot went between 13 and 16 inches deep. That's not just meeting standards. That's matching what many 9mm and .38 special bullets do. Some newer .22 hollow points couldn't even reach 10 inches. But these purpose-built defense rounds, they work. The testing also revealed something important. The longer the gun barrel, the better the .22 performs. From a rifle with a 16-inch barrel, the Federal punch reached speeds of 1,615 feet per second. From a 1-inch barrel pistol, it still hit 1,001 feet per second. For comparison, the old CCI Stinger ammo that people used to carry reached 1,233 feet per second from a 4-inch barrel. The Federal punch from the same gun hit 1,329 feet per second. Speed equals energy. Energy equals penetration. Penetration equals stopping power. Modern ammunition changed the game. 5 hidden advantages. So we know the .22 can work with the right ammo. But why would you actually choose it? The answer comes down to 5 advantages that most gun experts refuse to acknowledge. The first advantage is recoil, or rather, the complete lack of it. A .22 pistol feels like a toy compared to a .45. This matters more than most people realize because in a real emergency, your hands shake and your heart pounds at 180 beats per minute. Under that stress, most people can barely hold a gun steady. Now imagine trying to control a big pistol that kicks hard every time you pull the trigger. Your second shot goes high. Your third shot misses completely. The .22 doesn't do that. You can keep the gun on target, fire quickly, and actually hit what you're aiming at. 5 .22 bullets in the chest beat 1.44 Magnum that missed. The second advantage is capacity. Most .22 pistols hold 10 rounds, some hold 16, and a few hold 30 rounds in one magazine. Your typical 9mm usually carries 7 to 15 rounds depending on the gun. More bullets means more chances to stop the threat, and it means you can keep shooting if the first hit doesn't work. This becomes critical when you remember that 1/3 of attackers aren't immediately stopped by any handgun caliber. The third advantage is something huge that nobody talks about: training economics. A box of 50 .22 bullets costs about $5 to $10. A box of 59mm rounds runs $15 to $30, sometimes more. That means you can practice 3 times as much for the same money, and practice makes you better. Better shooting means better defense. Would you rather be an expert with a .22 or a beginner with a .45? The answer should be obvious. The fourth advantage is portability. .22 pistols are tiny and light. They disappear in your pocket. A loaded .22 revolver weighs about 12 ounces, less than a can of soda. You can carry it all day and forget it's there. This matters because the gun you actually carry with you is infinitely better than the big gun you left at home because it was too heavy or uncomfortable. The fifth advantage is noise reduction. Fire a .45 indoors and your ears will ring for days. The blast is deafening and painful. A .22 is much quieter, still loud, but not ear-destroying loud. This helps you stay aware of what's happening around you. You can hear if there's a second attacker or hear your family calling out. And if you ever attach a suppressor, the .22 becomes Hollywood quiet. The military and intelligence agencies used suppressed .22 pistols for decades because of exactly this characteristic. The hard truths. Now let's talk about what the .22 cannot do, because honesty matters more than hype. The first limitation is rimfire reliability. The .22 uses something called rimfire ignition, where the firing pin hits the edge of the bullet casing to make it fire. This design is cheap to make, but it's not as reliable as centerfire ammunition. Cheap .22 bullets fail to fire about 1 to 2% of the time, which means one dud in every 50 to 100 shots. Those are better odds than the lottery, but in a fight for your life, you want perfect. The solution is simple. Buy quality ammunition like Federal Punch, Winchester Silvertip, or CCI Stinger. Don't cheap out with bulk pack garbage and keep your gun clean. The second limitation is barrier penetration. Thick clothing, heavy coats, even windshield glass can slow down the .22 more than bigger bullets. The .22 has only about 1/3 the energy of a 9mm, so if your bullet needs to go through a barrier first, it might not have enough power left to stop the threat. This doesn't mean it won't work, but it does mean you need to be smarter about shot placement and understand the physics working against you. The third limitation is the determined attacker. Remember those statistics about 1/3 of people shot with a .22 not being immediately stopped? If you face someone on drugs, someone mentally ill, or someone so determined they don't care about pain, the .22 might not shut them down fast enough. For that rare scenario, a bigger bullet with more raw power becomes important. This is the nightmare case that keeps defensive instructors recommending larger calibers. The fourth limitation is that shot placement becomes critical. With a 9mm, a hit anywhere in the chest area will probably stop the fight because the sheer damage is massive. With a .22, you need to hit vital areas, headshots, upper chest, multiple rapid hits. Just winging someone's arm won't cut it. This requires better accuracy, better training, and more discipline under pressure. You can't afford to be sloppy with a .22 in ways you might get away with using a larger caliber. Who really needs this? So who is the .22 actually right for? The answer requires honesty that most gun salesmen won't give you. If you're a healthy adult who can handle recoil, a 9mm or .380 is probably better. The .22 isn't the best choice for most people, but for some people it's not just a good choice, it's the only choice that makes sense. People with weak hands need the .22. Arthritis hurts, and some folks can't rack a big pistol slide or control heavy recoil. For them, a .22 they can actually shoot beats a .45 they can't operate. This isn't about being tough or weak, it's about physics and pain working against you. Highly recoil-sensitive shooters benefit from the .22 in ways that change their entire relationship with firearms. Some people flinch badly with any centerfire gun, and they'll never learn to shoot accurately because the fear of recoil makes them jerk the trigger. A .22 lets them train without that fear, building skills that might eventually transfer to larger calibers. Backup gun carriers represent a different use case entirely. Many people carry a big gun as their primary and a tiny .22 as a backup. If their main gun fails or runs empty, that little .22 in their pocket becomes their lifeline. It's insurance against Murphy's Law. People on extreme budgets face a simple equation. Sometimes .22 is all you can afford, and a .22 you have is infinitely better than a 9mm you don't. Personal protection shouldn't be a luxury available only to those who can afford expensive ammunition and firearms. Home defenders who need something simple represent the final category. An elderly person who never trained with guns but wants protection faces a real problem. A .22 revolver is simple, point and pull the trigger. No safety to remember, no slide to rack, just aim and shoot. The founder of Gunsight Academy, one of the most respected firearms schools in the world, chose a .22 revolver for his wife's home defense. He knew she'd never become a serious shooter, so he gave her something she could actually use effectively. That's smart thinking based on reality rather than ego. The classified history. History gives us even more proof that the .22 works. During World War II, American bomber crews flying over enemy territory carried survival guns. One of them, the Stevens 22-40-10. It fired 22 bullets and shotgun shells. The military specifically included .22 ammunition for defensive purposes. British Special Forces in World War II used suppressed .22 pistols for covert operations. The Office of Strategic Services, America's early CIA, did the same. After the war, U-2 spy plane pilots carried suppressed .22 pistols as survival weapons. In the 1970s, British soldiers in Northern Ireland carried Walther .22 pistols for self-defense when off-duty. These weren't training guns or backup weapons. They were issued as primary defensive firearms in one of the most dangerous conflict zones of that era. The British Army designated them as the L-66A1 and trusted soldiers' lives to them. Would all these military and intelligence agencies trust their lives to the .22 if it didn't work? The answer becomes even clearer when you look at civilian defensive gun uses. Firearms instructor Claude Werner conducted a study of defensive shootings and found an interesting pattern. In civilian defensive situations where an attacker was hit with at least one .22 round, the criminal almost always fled immediately. The psychological impact of being shot, combined with the realization that the victim was armed and fighting back, caused attackers to break off and escape. This pattern holds across documented defensive gun uses. The criminal psychology is consistent. Getting shot changes everything. The pain, the shock, the realization that this victim fights back, it all adds up to an immediate decision to escape. Even attackers who might have been determined moments before suddenly prioritize survival over completing their crime. The reality check. Let's get brutally honest for a moment. The perfect self-defense gun doesn't exist. Every caliber has trade-offs. The .22 trades raw power for controllability. It trades stopping certainty for ease of use. It trades heavy damage for light recoil. For some people, that's a good trade. For others, it's not. But here's what most people miss. The best gun for self-defense isn't the most powerful one. It's the one you'll actually carry, the one you'll actually practice with, the one you can actually hit your target with when your hands are shaking and your heart is pounding. A gun expert once said, "The most powerful cartridge you can shoot accurately and proficiently in a gun you'll carry all the time." For some people, that's a .357 Magnum. For others, it's a 9mm. And for some, it's a .22. There's no shame in choosing the gun that fits your needs, your body, and your abilities. So here's the bottom line. Is the .22 LR the best self-defense caliber? No. If you can handle bigger rounds, use them. But is it viable? Can it save your life? Absolutely yes. With modern ammunition like Federal Punch or Winchester Silvertip, the .22 meets FBI standards for penetration. It stops 60% of attackers with one shot to the vital areas. It gives you low recoil, high capacity, and easy training. The myth that the .22 is useless for defense comes from outdated information, old ammunition, old testing, old thinking. The truth is more complicated and more interesting. The .22 works great against most attackers. It fails against some, just like every other caliber. The difference is smaller than most people think. So if you carry a .22 for defense, make sure you use quality ammunition. Train regularly. Aim for vital areas. Understand the limitations. And don't let anyone tell you you're wrong, because more criminals get stopped by .22 bullets every year than any other round in America. That fact speaks for itself. The .22 LR isn't perfect, but it's a lot better than most people think. And sometimes Better than people think is all you need to make it home safe.